Okay, we have a quorum. Sorry, my boiler's not off yet. I'm going to call us to order though at 6:01. Chris, are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, so call to order at 6:01 and we have Chris as our minute taker. Krista, can I ask you to run through the public comment norms at this point?
Sure. So since we're all on Zoom, when we get to the public comment portion of the meeting, we will just ask that you raise your electronic hand, and then we'll call on you and ask you to state your name and your town, and that you keep your comments relatively brief and respectful. Does that cover it? Great.
Okay, and we have 10 minutes usually allotted for public comment. Okay, so at this time, is there any public comment?
There we go.
I don't see any hands.
Herb, you're unmuted. Did you have a comment? We just went through to just tell folks to raise their hands if they had one. And I don't know if you're here for that, but I see you're not. Nope. Okay.
I'll leave.
There you go. Great. All right. And then we'll keep on. I don't see any hands up, so we'll keep moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? And if you just tell me who you are so I can mark it off.
So moved, Andrew.
Andrew.
Second, Steve.
Steve, second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that passes. We're going to move down to update from the Community Engagement Committee, and I'm going to turn it over to Krista to talk about the meeting they had last week.
Sure. We focused on our community budget meeting, which is tomorrow at 7 p.m. And we're clear that this is a budget information meeting. There'll be an opportunity for the format will be for Patrick to provide an overview of the draft budget. And then there'll be an opportunity for community members to ask questions and offer comments and suggestions. Hopefully you all saw the questions that the members of the Community Engagement Committee had asked in anticipation of the meeting, and thinking about what might be on community members' minds. And so between that feedback and what we've asked for Patrick, which is to give us a sense of how this budget aligns with our board priorities and the priorities that were shared through the thought exchange, that will, as well as any other budget assumptions and drivers, that will be the bulk of the presentation. And I think we've allotted an hour and a half. It's going to be in a webinar format. And so Sandy Lee has offered to volunteer to work with Katrina and Susan to take the questions that come in from community members through the chat, which will be limited to just be shared with those folks. They'll then try to group those questions into ones that are similar to one another. And then I will read them to Patrick, and they'll be answered by Patrick and other members of his team. And that's a format that we use that worked really well when we held the virtual community meetings prior to school reopening after the COVID shutdown. And also when we held the virtual town halls after Patrick provided his recommendation to the board on school reconfiguration. So that's kind of how it's going to go. And hopefully, I know folks have posted to Front Porch Forum at least once. Hopefully they've had a chance to get the word out a couple of times. Does anybody have any questions about what's happening tomorrow or Any other feedback?
Thanks for all your work.
Well, thank you to the committee for their help with it. I guess I would just also add, sorry, just one more thing occurred to me. We talked a little bit about when the community and the board would see the line by line or more detailed version of the budget, and that will be at the annual meeting. Is when the community will see, and I think it was at least 2 budget cycles ago, maybe you can correct me, Floyd, when we came up with we asked, provided feedback, and then you helped put together some coding next to the different items as they were grouped, so we could sort of understand what categories they fit into. So that will be available at the annual meeting, which is before town meeting day, usually at the end of February. And I don't know if that's changing this year with all the conversations about town meeting, but for now, we're talking about an overview.
Okay, thank you, Krista. All right, moving down is an action item to authorize the board chair to sign a memorandum of understanding with MAEAA. It's similar to the one we signed last year, same kind of theme. So we'll just take a motion and a second, and then you can discuss it.
So move, Steve.
I'll
Okay.
second Andrew.
Andrew. Okay, any discussion? The document was included in the minutes. You want to raise your hand, your virtual hand?
Crazy.
All right. Patrick, do you have anything you want to add?
No, it's it's as straightforward as anything COVID related can be.
All right, I am not seeing any hands from board members. Oh, hi, Kristen. All right, so all those in favor of authorizing the board chair to sign the MOU with MAEA, please say aye.
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 I see thumbs, and I see thumbs. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Okay, the next action item, we're gonna need to table it probably till February because we don't have it tonight. So if you just want to make a motion in a second to table it, and we'll get it on a February agenda when we have some space. Dave, you're moving. Are you trying to, you're muted, I think.
Yes, I'm trying to move it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
So moved.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second Andrew.
All right. Any discussion? Dave?
So I apologize that it's not ready for tonight. I'm not a very proficient Google user, and I've had some health issues that set me back. So I will have it ready soon. I would comment, I was like 2 minutes late for the meeting and I missed the discussion on the consent agenda. One of the things with the minutes is that all the minutes that I found on the website are labeled unapproved. I presume that they're approved, but if we should ever get into a legal tussle about what's in the minutes and what's not in the minutes, I think it's helpful if when they're posted on the website, they're labeled as approved.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay, then, all in favor of tabling the monitoring report for policy 4.3 agenda planning? Please give a thumbs up or say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that one passes. All right, next is an action item to direct the superintendent to get feedback from building principals on school advisory councils. So if we get a motion in a second, then we can talk about it.
So moved, Krista.
Okay.
Steve seconds.
All right. Okay. So this was part of a discussion, I believe in October, that we started when we were at Moncton, talking about school advisory councils. And one of the questions was whether, I think I remember somebody saying, is there even capacity to take this on right now? So this was an attempt to respond to that and to give us a chance to talk through this piece once again. I'll go Krista and then Steve, but I'm going to be muted. So Krista, when you're done, just tell Steve, and then because the boiler's running again.
Yeah, so we had some really good conversations as a board. Then we had some good conversations in the community engagement committee. Thank you to Steve for the great presentation to everybody. And I think where we came at, and this first came out of the community engagement committee, was that we had a good sense of what this could be, how this could work, but that the folks on the ground needed to really provide some feedback. The building leaders needed to really provide feedback at this point. And so it seemed like that was a logical next step, and that would require us to connect with Patrick to see if, what way he might like to move that forward so those folks could weigh in. So that's just a little bit more context. Steve?
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that came out of it was that we were trying not to have this be a board action to actually form these committees, so that they weren't subject to our rules and regulations, that they could be a little more organic, not only in their formation, but maybe even in the way they're run. I think with that, however, there's a little bit of a question in my mind as to how they're jump started and who actually jump starts them if we're not jump starting them. I'm hoping maybe this is part of that process.
You want to go ahead, Rob?
You guys hear me? Sorry. Yeah,
Yep.
to piggyback off of Steve, I'm looking at that flow chart again, Steve, and I don't remember where we left it the last time we had the conversation, but I mean, I support Patrick reaching out to the building leaders. I'm also curious, if each council from each school has to sort of look the same. That being said, I'm sure our building leaders are pretty swamped right now, but if there are other community members that sort of wanted to maybe to step up and take charge, that they felt they might have the ability to do so and not necessarily need the permission of a principal per se. I don't know where we stand with that, but that you have a little box of like who might be on it, and is that open to interpretation as far as it might not have to look like that depending on what's where?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the whole schematic was kind of a suggestion of the things that people needed to consider when they were putting these things together. All of these topics would need to be at least talked about within the group. How you're going to appoint people, how you're going to run your meetings, how you're going to support people being able to participate, and how you develop some kind of a communications method with both the board and the superintendent on either means or ends that can be monitored and provide the feedback loop that we're kind of hoping this all is going to result in.
Krista.
Yeah, and I would just add that I think another theme that came out when we were talking about it, especially with the community engagement committee, was that this should really be organic. And so it might look different from school to school. I think it makes sense for us to connect with building leaders to see what they might envision, but that it really is can be catered to a particular community. And in general, it's just one of the ways that I think this group's talked about building in more feedback loops and more connectivity now that we're a unified board with our individual schools. So there may be other ways, but this was one of those ways.
Anyone else? Sarah.
I just think if we're asking them, we need to have a strong purpose about what they're for. And it sounds like the whole thing feels a little organic. So I think we should just be a little more precise about what the like if I was a principal, I would have a hard time figuring out, well, what do you want me to do with this? What is your goal for this group? And that might inform me a lot more about how I might answer. So I think we do need a little bit more of a direction if we're looking for some stuff about what the goal is.
Steve?
So I think the overarching goal is to provide a feedback loop, and that feedback loop obviously is going to be compiled of issues that people feel they need to provide feedback on. There's some suggested topics on that framework that are meant as prompts for folks to think about at, in that scheme that I laid out, there was two different types of councils, but together those list of topics could be covered by anybody. And I would think the groups, after they formed, would decide themselves what was an appropriate agenda for a discussion. And, perhaps the group could form and maybe they'd find they had nothing to talk about, but I suspect that might not be the case. But I think the board's intent, if I got it right, is that there's a mechanism for us to gather some feedback from the schools outside of just the normal board communication path, and a way for us, and not for just us, but for the public also. I mean, these agendas and their whatever actions or recommendations or topics are discussed would be, a public document that could be shared and understood and acted upon if the board felt there was an item in there that needed to be addressed.
Kristen? Can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry about that. So having attended many PTO meetings at Moncton over the years, like quite a few, especially it was great when people brought food. But I mean, those would have qualified really. I mean, people brought up whatever they wanted to. The principal was there. It was great. I mean, some things from the board level were talked about. So I've sort of been at meetings like sort of we're envisioning, I think, except they had a larger agenda than just maybe what these would, but I think it's good that And maybe I'm just thinking, I don't know how the PTO at Moncton runs now, but a lot of the same people would probably go to the council meetings too.
Okay. Patrick?
I guess, and this may be similar to Sarah's question. I'm just trying to understand as I work with principals to get this feedback. Is it that this is something the board wants to see happen and curious about how to make it happen? Or is this the board wanting to hear from principals if they think it should happen? I'm just trying to get a sense of like if the principals don't think it's a good idea to have these councils, is the board then going to make a directive that the councils are formed? I don't know. I'm just curious about what exactly it is I'm getting the input about and toward what end. I think what I heard Steve say was ideally all the principals think this is a great idea and they each create their own version of what this might be, and it happens organically and it's not subject to open meeting law. And maybe some principals want to do it and others don't want to do it. And is that okay? I guess I'm just curious, toward what end are we seeking input, I guess is what I'm trying to wrap my head around. And I think that's something principals will want to know.
Steve?
I think the answer is going to be in what their reaction to the topic is. I think it's pretty clear the board doesn't want to force this down anybody's throat. I think they want it's been talked about for quite some time in different groups and at different levels. And I think without going down this path and at least understanding what participation level they feel they want to have in it, it'd be difficult to understand how much traction it really has. So I don't think anybody's looking to force anything. I think we just frankly want to know what it's the start of a feedback loop. So just, you could show them the diagram, say that this is kind of an idea of how things might work, and find out what their opinion is, frankly, and what their frank opinion of it is.
Krista?
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, and maybe it'd be good to get thumbs from the board, to make sure we're all on the same page. But I think Steve and I are on the same page that, I think the problem we're trying to solve is that there's been an express need to find ways for individual schools to connect more with the board. And this is one way that has been looked at and explored and we're offering up, but that if there are other ways, that's great too. And so it's more like, what's the problem we're trying to solve, which is how to stay connected to our individual schools now that we're one board. And that if there are other ways to do that work better for individual schools or for all of our schools, that I would think, and again, we should get the pulse of everybody here, but I would think that we would be open to any of those suggestions.
Okay. And Liz, was your hand up earlier?
Yeah, I agree with Krista, absolutely, especially considering that Mount Abe does have a community council, which is a place for people to come and bring up things that are going on, and the participation is not what it was before COVID. So again, still looking for people to join, still looking for people to participate. And so there is an existing structure there. And now may just be a challenging time for people to do it. So certainly if principals had other ideas about what could be helpful, yeah, that would be great.
Okay, and Patrick?
Yeah, just a clarifying follow-up question from Krista's comment. I heard Krista say that that the purpose would be for a link between the board and the schools. And I know there's been conversation about the importance of a link between the schools and the community. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap there, but they're also a little bit different. Is it also the link to the community?
Steve?
Yeah, and I think the link is kind of indirect. It's not, it's really sort of an internal discussion at the school amongst a group of people that may not otherwise meet. And those discussions could be limited to a circle that happens with an action and a solution within that group. And it doesn't necessarily carry on to a board needing to do anything or the administration needing to do anything. But we would be able to monitor that discussion had happened and just understand, what the issue was that was raised there. If we see that same issue raised at 5 schools, we might talk about it as a board. But if they're resolving it locally, that's fine too. When it would rise to something that your office or the board would need to deal with would be mainly at the request of the group. They can't seem to come to a solution on something and they need some help, and so they raise their hand, and we see that in an agenda item that we can monitor. That's kind of the general idea.
Andrew, we haven't heard from you, or Kevin. Do you have any comments?
So I did the thumbs up earlier. Yeah, I'm in favor of what Steve and Krista are saying too, just to bounce it to the principals and hear back from them. And then we can hear via Patrick whether or not all the principals have roughly similar ideas, or a few are interested and a few say we don't have the bandwidth. And then the board can decide how much we want to script this, or sort of make it happen anyway, or sort of postpone it or whatever. But I don't want to come down top heavy on this. I'd like to hear from the folks at the ground level what they would like to do with it.
Kevin?
Yeah, I kind of like the concept of I don't call it fact finding, but get a pulse of what the value or the benefit or the desire would be for this. I remain very cautious that we end up, if they go forward, that in their community aligned and that sort of thing, that there's a broad base of people involved, and we all know that if you're happy, you don't get involved, and if you're not happy, you get involved. And I'm concerned that if we don't structure these things right, or structure them right, that we just have another avenue of people that've got an issue, as opposed to get a true sense of community and operations. But I think I do agree, particularly with what Andrew said, that it would be good to pulse it out and get the perspective of the local schools, and then see where it should go from there.
Brad?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much what everybody's saying. I mean, I think as a general matter, having other, avenues for communication is a good thing, given our recent past. I also echo what Andrew said. I think that, if we don't have the buy-in of the schools and, the principals, then it's not something that's going to work if we sort of kind of, force it down their throats, either from the board or from the administration. So I think, making sure that the principals are engaged and have input into how the thing might be structured is really important.
Thank you. And Dave?
I agree with the comments that have been put forth. if it works, it could be a healthy communication piece. If it doesn't work, we can deal with that at a later time.
Did I miss anybody? You're all hopping around on me. Kristen, Sarah spoke. Right. So it sounds like we're just looking to see how they feel about the idea and what additional thoughts they might have about the idea and go from there, I guess. Yep. Okay. So any more discussion? Anyone have something they just, a burning comment they got to make?
Well, I guess I have a point of
Right.
order. This is an action item, so do we have to do anything here?
Yeah, well, we're going to direct the superintendent to get some feedback around the topic of school advisory councils from the building principals. That was the motion.
I just had
Yes.
this might not be a good idea, but I just wondered if when you get that feedback, Patrick, it might be interesting to just hear from them directly, hear from the principals directly on what they think about this. I don't know if it's feasible, possible, but anyway, I always appreciate hearing their insight. So just occurred to me that that might be kind of interesting.
Okay. All right. So all those in favor of officially giving direction to Patrick to get some feedback on this topic of school advisory councils, please give a thumbs up or say aye. All right. Looks like everybody's got their thumbs up. Anyone? I don't see any. No opposed. All right. No abstentions. Okay, the motion carries.
Could I make a comment about how this shows up in the minutes? So if you look at the right panel of our agenda, there's in bold, it'll say motion and then motion passed, and then it has a place for vote. So there's at least one instance I found in my research where it says motion passed, 10 opposed, 2 in favor. So it's a little bit confusing. I'm pretty sure what happened reading what the vote was about and remembering being at that meeting that the motion failed, and it was 10 opposed and 10 supporting the motion. So it needs to be clear in the minutes when a motion is mentioned in the minutes as passed and failed, that it's clear whether the motion passed or failed.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's also why we approve the minutes every month.
To catch
Folks,
that ourselves.
To try to, people should try to do a little more reading on that, I think.
Yes, and I'm as guilty as anyone else for not paying attention to that.
All right, the next item is a discussion item. At the meeting in New Haven when we met, there was a question about what if you had other questions about the budget, and I mentioned that you could submit them to the board by a date, and so the questions in the agenda are questions that were submitted by board members, and we can go through them like we did in the past with board questions and sort of give a thumbs up on whether we want to officially ask for an answer for that, or if it's not as important to us as a group. So has everybody had a chance to look at the questions? I'm gonna minimize you all and go pull mine up to read through them. Okay. So Krista, can I get your help on this so that I can manage the people? If you could read read the questions and we can give a thumbs up for you're in support of it, sideways or down.
Sure. So you just want me to read from the document?
That would be great if you could read the first question. I know-
Okay. Are you all set?
I'm all set. I'm going to be watching to see the.
Okay. Can Patrick address at these meetings how he has incorporated the concerns raised regarding staffing costs and the continuing decision to spend money on the coaching personnel? This first question has three components. So the next piece of that is, can he show how his decision to fund this methodology has led to positive outcomes for the district, pros and cons, and what work still needs to be done and funded?
Okay. So taking a temperature here. Thumbs up, thumbs sideways, or thumbs down for that question as a group. Okay. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Is this an opportunity to ask for clarity as well, Don?
Well, we have 4 in support, 4 sideways, and a down. So,
Maybe a little clarity will help.
all right.
So as Krista said, there are multiple questions. So can Patrick address at these meetings how he has incorporated the concerns raised regarding staffing costs? That's the first portion. I'm not sure what concerns raised regarding staffing costs this is referencing. And I think as I read this, separate from that, can I address the concerns raised around the coaching personnel, which I feel like I've done multiple times already, but I can do again. Those feel like two separate pieces for me. So the first question is around what are the concerns raised about staffing costs that I am to be addressing in response to this question?
Patrick,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That wasn't my question, but it seems to me maybe there's whoever asked the question is trying to link decisions about staffing costs with the decision to spend money on the coaching personnel.
Yeah, I was wondering if the person who asked the question is here and can clarify. Do you know, Don, who asked these questions? Or this question?
I know there are two people, and I think the person who asked this question is not here.
And I think there's similarities to what we shared from the Community Engagement Committee feedback, which is around the investments in the coaching model / coaches and investments in direct staff. I mean, I think they're fairly, well, I guess I shouldn't make that assumption because I'm not the question asker, but it may be that that's the nature, those are the similarities there in those questions.
Dave. You're still muted.
Push the button. There, is that better?
Yes.
I've heard a couple of things that are related to this question. One is about the model itself. I think there is reluctance on the part of some staff and some parents to embrace the notion of a coaching model. I think there's also some people who think the coaching model is a good idea, but question the youth and inexperience of the staff members who are the coaches, coaching veteran teachers who are being successful. So those are the kinds of two things that I've heard in public. I didn't pose the question, so I don't know if that's what they're getting at, but that's what I've heard from people in the community.
And just to be clear, the second portion of what Dave shared would begin to get evaluative, and I'm not going to go there in a public session, but talking about the benefits of coaching, we can do that again.
All right, Rob? Can't hear you. I'm not hearing him. Is anybody else? Nope. Nope, still.
Now?
Oh, there you are.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. These headphones. And then to piggyback off of Dave's comment, sorry, I think I've also heard that, you know, as we've dealt with declining enrollment and sort of utilized attrition in our different schools, is this a model, I guess, when we really have to look at trying to, you know, keep costs down. If we had all the money in the world, I think people would argue it's probably a great model. But as we see less and less FTEs in our buildings, is it a model that we can truly afford as we deal with declining enrollment? That's all to piggyback off, Dave, what I've also heard.
Krista.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering if it would be helpful to look at the questions that have been posed. And you know, I don't want to. I'm just wondering if we can fold them into questions that have already been. They feel sort of similar to or already been asked.
I feel like the idea behind this might already be in that other list of questions you've sent out.
Yes,
And
I kind of think so.
Because I didn't see overwhelming support for it. If we could just move on to the next question, and then we might go to refresh our memory about those other questions and see that some of them are answered through that.
Okay.
If we
so
could
then
stay
sure.
on task of yes or no, and then.
Okay. So the next one is about principals' input into funding of staffing. Can Patrick provide specific examples? What pros and cons have the principals noted? How, if at all, has that affected the decision on funding of staffing needs? And I would just say, I think that's also a question that's been asked, and some of the answers to that were provided when we were in New Haven. And that document, the board questions and the responses, is all part of the resources that were shared with folks prior to the meeting for tomorrow. And I think it also came out in the additional questions posed by the Community Engagement Committee.
Kristen has her hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just going back to the other thing just for a second. That I remember that Katrina said that some coaching positions haven't been filled as people have left. I believe she said that at one point, and that I mean, that's a many layered question. It's not just a budget question, right? So and I don't think I don't think in a budget we're gonna flip a system. I think that if we're gonna flip a system, it needs to be analyzed and thoughtfully considered, and that a budget wouldn't be a way to in one fell swoop change the delivery system, right?
Liz?
And I think I'd like to notice that the chart that was sent out about staffing levels, that was so helpful across all the schools, and it really laid out a lot of things, and it showed coaches, interventionists. Also would like to appreciate that all the schools have a full-time principal, 1.9 principal. All the schools now have a full-time principal, so it looks like that's a part of the staffing plan for the budget, and that's really exciting to me. I think at this time when we need so much, and we need so much communication and support as families, and so I do think that poring over the documents that are included with the budget invitation will answer so many things.
Okay,
And just a
Right.
point of clarification on that one though, Liz, so that what you saw there was reflective of this current year? Where we have 1.9 principal, and next year we would have 2 principals at 0.9, so a slight change. But that, just to be clear, that document was this year, because we haven't had those conversations about exactly where staffing will be next year, et cetera.
so this question, the second question already has some answers out there, and it aligns with some of the questions on the other document as well. So can we skip the thumbs on this one and just keep going and seeing if there's a burning question that comes from? All right, Krista, you want to read the next one?
Sure. This is specifically about facilities and the recommendation to put money in the capital fund, I think, related to roof and electrical. So can we have can Patrick reiterate and provide the link to the facilities report that outlines these needs?
How do board members feel? Or a thumbs on that one? One, two, three, four, five. 5 for it, at 3 sideways, and I did, Brad, did I miss you? Oh, so 6 up. So it sounds like that's a question that the majority of the group is interested in having an answer to.
Can I just, I was just thinking that it might be helpful going into tomorrow's meeting if we can add that link just to the facilities. I don't know what the name of the document is, but where we see sort of year by year what the projected expenses are. I think that would be a helpful addition to the resources we provided to folks prior to tomorrow's meeting.
Capital
So,
improvement plan, we can definitely.
yes, thank you. Those are the words I can't find. And that might cover this particular question, but I think it's something that everybody should have access to. So I'm going to add that to that resource list.
Okay, that'll be helpful. All right, and then there's another 4 questions.
Oh, yeah. So when will we see the entire budget, not just a summary? Is it prior to the meeting at the end of the month?
I don't know. Patrick would be able to answer that now, or if that's a.
Yeah, that can be ready as soon as you want it. Floyd and I were talking about that today. It's essentially ready now. I think, Floyd, you can elaborate, but it's essentially ready now. Couple little points to clarify, but I think that can be ready quickly.
So would board members like that before the meeting on the 25th? Would that be helpful?
And just to clarify, when we see the word, that we all define the whole budget differently. One might look at the whole budget as 1,800 lines. I don't think that's what you're looking for. When I hear the whole budget referred to from the board, I'm thinking what we typically see at the annual meeting, organized that way with the different color coded things. Like, that's what I'm envisioning. So if it's something other than that, I just need to know.
What are your thoughts? Do you want the 1,800 lines? No.
No, I think we're just looking for an advanced version of what we've been putting out the last couple of years.
Okay. And then Rob has his hand up.
Yeah, these are my 4 questions. So that's where, for me, the weeds is not where I do well in. So that's what I was asking for. Thank you.
We can even try to maybe link that as well in the near future, like maybe try to get it out ahead of tomorrow. That might be
That's
pushing
what I
a
was.
little bit, but maybe.
That would be great. Or if not prior to the meeting, that we can let folks know immediately after that will be available. I think that'd be really helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Is it possible to see a breakout of individual schools in regards to, so Rob, it sounded like these were your questions. Is that right? Do you want to clarify this one at all? Is this, you're looking for a breakdown of individual schools in regard to spending and equalized pupils? Is this different than what we saw in New Haven? With the spending per school per need, by need?
I guess I believe so. And correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick or Floyd, but we talk about class size and that I think that's just add like the individual number of students in the classroom. Is that correct?
Yeah, that doesn't account for need at all. That's just numbers of kids. Yep.
And so and then the two links, the one that Liz alluded to it earlier is from last year's, and that's sort of at the end. If you scroll way to the, I guess, far right or left, depending on how your computer works, it sort of shows % on free and reduced lunch and students with IEPs. But then again, that I don't know, and I know that the weighting formula is up in the air still, but I guess how that equates. To go to the 30,000 foot level, I'm just really curious to see how that shuffles out when we talk about equity within our district and amongst our schools, because 10 kids in one classroom and 10 in another, they could have drastic different needs. And so I just would really at some point be interested in seeing that breakout. And then same with that, the document, if we could have updated documents for this coming school year. And I know you had mentioned that staffing has not been finalized yet. So I guess that'd be probably preempted before those moves are made. But once they sort of maybe are sort of quasi set in stone, if we could just see an updated version, please.
Yeah, the operative word there is quasi set in stone, right? That's usually a springtime activity that we do as an admin team when we see really where the dust has settled and we know what we're working with next year, and there's been some change in staff and things have kind of landed a bit. So that's something we could certainly do in the spring. And I think your other question is similar to a question Kevin asked last time, which was around sort of what's the cost per equalized pupil at each school. And it's possible to do sort of to give you a ballpark idea, but that equalized pupil calculation formula takes into account some state level information that wouldn't necessarily apply here. So it's not quite as clean as applying that formula to a school by school basis. Having said that, we could more or less get it into the ballpark. It will take quite a lot of effort. So there's no way that would be ready for tomorrow, but it is something we could look at down the road. And I also think, we're about to hear a report from Nate Levinson. I think it could be useful to see what we learned from that. And we might be able to build off of some of the work he's done and tools they've created to get at some of this too. So thinking about that as a future item post Nate's work could also make sense.
Can I just jump in? I've done some high level stuff per school, and the story hasn't changed from last year when we had this same conversation. A smaller school, smaller numbers is more expensive per kid. And a deep dive on that might be beneficial. And I'm certainly happy to do that. But generally speaking, the story hasn't changed.
Dave?
Thank you. So I had some significant issues when long time ago numbers came out that Lincoln was 28,000 per kid and Bristol was 16,000 per kid. And the way that the number of equalized pupils was calculated, as Patrick referred to, can't be the same as they used to be because the state isn't involved anymore at the school level. They're only involved at the district level. And the assumptions that were made in order to calculate those equalized pupils in the schools, I'm not sure. I forget entirely. It was a long time ago, but I know I felt that the assumptions were not accurate. And the result of that was to create a whole lot of animosity and concern between residents of one community and residents of a different community. So I'm really reluctant to go in this direction. I think Floyd's analysis is the one that we should go with, and that is that smaller schools are going to cost more per pupil than bigger schools. It's just a fact of life with the notion of economies of scale, and to try to fabricate what we think an equalized pupil might be and assign numbers to it and come down with the dollars and cents. The only useful or the only result, which would be very unuseful, would be to create tension and animosity that's not helpful.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Kristen, Kristen.
Yeah, I mean, I think though that we do need to know to some degree how much a student at each school costs. I think without the intention of having animosity of any sort, but I think it's just practical and prudent to know that. We always used to when the schools were not unified. We would know that. It would be easier to figure that out too. But I mean, I think as a practical thing as we move forward, that we do need to know that. That's just my thought in order to analyze and figure out how to move forward with things.
Liz?
And I like what you said about the connection to Nate's work. I think it could be really helpful. Another way for us to look at what the different options are that come forward, and that could be helpful for us in the community in making decisions.
Rob?
Yeah, to Dave's point, by no means am I trying to create or rouse up any more animosity within our district. I guess for me to feel a little more informed as a board member, maybe my question wasn't totally framed as how I'm really thinking about it, and that's regarding like, I guess FTE per equalized pupil, and so often we say that the staffing is our largest driver of cost. And just thinking about a unified district, if there are classrooms and they vary year over year that are identified as they have a higher percentage of students that need extra help, how can we as a district shift people around to support that individual classroom, maybe even just for that year? Whereas another school might have a class that they don't need maybe as much help. I know in a COVID world, everyone needs more help. I totally hear that, but I guess it would help me create that link of when I look at that document and see, 0.5 or 0.75 position in LCS, and I see same number or higher in a different school. I just don't necessarily understand why. If it's just driven by number of bodies in a building, that percentage, or is it driven by actual maybe need? That's just sort of, I don't know if that helps, but I agree with you, Patrick, that it's not a question that I need to see answered, and but might bring more levity to all the other work that's going on here facilities.
Well, I think as you just framed it, Rob, that sounds very different to me than the question that's written. So that was helpful. And the reality is this kind of connects back to that document that I said we update in the spring. The reason we update in the spring is because in the spring, that's the best we have in terms of looking at need for next year. And we look at that need as we think about where staffing needs to be, and that identifying that need and what staffing we have available is what creates some of the shifts that we end up making each year to move people to the different buildings to cover the need that we see for students. And the reality is that need changes over the course of the school year, and we continually look for making those shifts to get people where they need to be to meet student needs. So that is the process, and I couldn't tell you now what that would be for next year. It would be in the spring, and then it inevitably would change before school starts as things change over the summertime. So it's a bit of an iterative process.
Anybody else we haven't heard from? Andrew or Sarah, Kevin? Brad?
I'm good, thanks.
So like it was mentioned, I had raised this question before, and if certain towns are a little uncomfortable given their relative cost to other towns, so be it. I think it is very important that we understand where the need is, which in my mind, is identified by equalized pupils, unless we've got a better way to do it. And where the costs are going, from a purely cost point of view, not from a program point of view, and use that to refine the best we can to not burden low-cost schools with high-cost schools unnecessarily, and keep our eyes wide open as to where the costs are, and obviously given the performance, and make sure that those two things are balanced and honed to the best that we can. We can't do that if we don't remain conscious of what the realities are.
Well, and I think to that point, I mean, that we're touching on a central theme in the analysis we've hired Nate to do, right? So I think that learning what we can from Nate's work and then seeing what didn't Nate do that the board needs information on may position us well to think about what next steps make sense. So I don't necessarily disagree, Kevin. I think that's part of the analysis, and let's see what Nate's done and fill in where we have to.
Okay, and Dave, did you have a comment or are you all set now? You're still muted.
I guess I'm all set. You know, I don't disagree with the need to understand where we're spending our money. I think that's important. I just think that the calculations that were done to create a 28,000 per pupil cost in Lincoln and a $16,000 per pupil cost in Lincoln, I don't agree with the math that was used. Just for example, it included a bond payment. Now that's not an ongoing annual cost of running the school. That's something we inherited when they became part of our district, and has really nothing to do with the education going on in that building or the number of FTEs that are delivering education. So I agree with the notion that we ought to know where our money's going. But I think we have to be really careful how we lay that out.
Okay. All right.
There was one more question, Dawn.
Oh, okay.
How is the budget connected to the strategic plan, our ends, especially moving toward compliance and community values?
And can I make a quick point? Were we going to do thumbs on that last question?
The one prior to the one I just read, you mean, Steve?
The one about cost per town.
We can.
I mean, I thought that's what we were doing, yes or
Yeah.
knowing these things.
Yeah, but that one sounded like it was more like a long range answer was going to be developed as the budget got approved and more information was available. It may not all be answerable right away, kind of thing. So, but I mean, I'm happy to take a temperature on how people feel about that previous question.
Well, we could have phrased it that way. Do you want the answer now, or do you want to wait until after Nate's report, or not at all?
Okay, all those interested in an answer to that second question soon, give a thumbs up. Okay, no, just seeing a thumb sideways sometimes. How about after Nate's report? Okay. I see a lot of thumbs up and 2 thumbs sideways. So it sounds like, oh, 3 thumbs sideways. So that question sounds like maybe after Nate's report, we can revisit that and. Okay. All right, and then. Okay, then the last question that Krista read. Do you want to do thumbs on that one? I see a thumb. Sideways, thumbs, 1, 2. Waiting for everybody to catch up.
What's the question again? We've had a lot of questions out there. What are we thumbs upping and
How is
down
the
now?
budget? How is the budget connected to the strategic plan, our ends, especially moving towards compliance and community values? So, let's see, 1, 2, 3. 3 thumbs up. 1, 2, 3. Oh, 4 thumbs up. No, hold still.
5,
1,
6.
2, 3, 4, 5. 5 thumbs up and 1, 2, 3, 4 thumbs sideways. So it sounds like we're interested in having some information on that one as a group.
And that's ideally for tomorrow?
I don't. I'm seeing shaking heads, but
Okay.
That's a
How
big
about I
ask.
try for tomorrow? Does that seem reasonable? And if not tomorrow, then as soon thereafter as I can. I'm just trying to gauge where.
I'm seeing thumbs up for that. And Krista's got her hand up. So Krista.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say that like this question and even related to the coaching, like I think having context from you, Patrick, which you do provide along the process, but sometimes we need to hear it a couple times, and maybe it could be even more clear, of kind of the bigger picture, I think is really important for us, and ongoing board education around the connection between, the dollars and cents to your vision and to where we're headed. And that seems pretty critical to us understanding how this budget is going to deliver on that and how we can advocate for voters to approve the budget toward that vision. So I guess I just wanted to make that comment that I'm realizing that the sort of need for us to regularly be educated about that is really important, leading up to the budget development process, but on an ongoing basis, so we have a clear understanding of where we're headed.
Dave?
So with regards to tomorrow's meeting, I have a VSBA meeting tomorrow. And I'm going to take this opportunity, if I may, to say that some really significant things are happening at the state and the legislative level. I could spend an hour just giving you summaries. I strongly suggest you go to the VSBA website and look at the weighting proposal that's coming out of the task force and the pension proposal coming out of that task force, let's be aware so we can begin to influence what's happening at the state level. Thank you.
Okay, Krista, is your hand up from before, or is that a new hand?
Sorry, I need to put it down.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we've gone through those questions. I don't think, Krista, I don't think we need to go through the entire list that you've shared with it. I think you've shared it with the entire board, I think, at this point, and it's been attached to the agenda as part of the preparation for tomorrow night. Is that correct?
Yeah, it should be in the agenda, and it was sent out in the Front Porch Forum posts.
Okay. So if members want to review it and, you know, be listening for that tomorrow night and, or bits and pieces, because I know some of the questions are answered tomorrow and okay. Anything else around these questions?
I think what I'll try to do is, there's a couple of different places where they exist, but one version is the board questions and responses from New Haven, which is like a nice table document with the question and then the response. And so I think I'll try to get everything in this format, and that as information is provided, to put it there so that it can be put on the website and shared back out with folks who were not able to attend or want to be able to refer back to that.
Okay, that would be great. All right. Okay, I'm going to keep moving along. The next item is a discussion on meeting mechanics. And there were 2 items that we didn't finish in New Haven in our final Fury, those 15 minutes. And so one of them was to get some volunteers to work on creating a charge for the proposed policy governance committee. And Steve had mentioned he'd be willing to help with that, and Sandy. So, and the direction primarily that Krista and I were thinking about was having them work, like what would this committee's work be, and what sort of making a recommendation of a charge for this committee. And so that we can talk about it a little more, understand the structure and foundation for creating a committee, and it would give us a chance to sort of do a little board work in that discussion. So Sandy had said she's willing, and Steve, she was going to reach out to you sooner, but I said, hang on, wait till we talk about it. So if the 2 you want to connect, and, you know, there are, Krista, did you get that document sent to everybody? I don't remember what happened with the document where from the meeting we did at Mount Abe.
No, that was on my list. And you mean writing up all the notes from there?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm sorry, I keep dropping the ball on that.
That's all right. They've got a little time. Brad.
Yeah, I just want to mention that my understanding is that I've been meaning to, go to the website, but my understanding is that the CVU board, they have a policy governance approach, but they also have a governance committee. So that might be a good resource for Steve and Sandy to check out as they get underway, so they don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did look on their website. I couldn't find their charge. I might have to reach out to one of their members to see if there's a history of that. The one thing that I did do was to look on the VSBA website, and I did find their policy creation policy, which we don't seem to have something in our holster for that process. So I was actually going to start with their document and work through that, and also maybe poke the Career Center folks. They have a policy governance committee that does the same kind of work, and see what their charge might have been at the beginning.
Okay, so if you and Sandy want to let the board chair know who's gonna, when you're ready to bring that forward, and because the next, like the end of the month is kind of busy, so it wouldn't happen in January and February. We're gonna get to, and then in March we'll reorganize. So
right,
just speak up when you guys have it ready and ready to go. Another item was
Don, sorry, I was just thinking to that point. So we would want to do it before we reorganize, ideally, right? So that we would have folks that we could potentially appoint to that committee at reorganization, or does it not?
I don't think it matters.
Okay.
I'm just,
It might be nice to start the new cycle with something in place, but we got a lot of other fish to fry as well. so.
right. That's what I was thinking. There's a lot of unknowns around the work we're gonna open with Nate. And so I would hate to say, we're gonna do it by this time, and we find out that the Nate stuff takes us a little more time than we anticipated. Okay. The other thing Krista and I had talked about as far as would be helpful is having a school board member looking at the website, seeing, if we miss something, because often what happens, I mean, I can speak for myself, often I'll go look for something and have trouble finding it and then have to figure out how to find it. So it'd be helpful if somebody was saying, just looking around the website saying, I couldn't find this, or where do I find this? And just to help us kind of keep track of our documents and our stuff. Steve?
Yeah, and I think I might have mentioned this at a retreat earlier, but I think it might be helpful to have a little bit of a working session with folks. Maybe it's at the start of the new year when we have new members or something, but just to open up Google, open up the drive, walk through it, show people where stuff is located, how it's organized. You can figure it out if you spend enough time in it, but it can be awfully frustrating trying to push through that learning curve. And there might be some suggestions on how to improve it while we're doing that.
I would agree. It would be good to walk through that with everybody. Okay. And then the other question was, we have our meeting scheduled for the 25th, and I'm just wondering if board members are going to be wanting an additional meeting sometime before the 25th, because they feel like there will be so much happening at the 25th, they need more time. So I just wanted to check in because there is a very limited couple of days that could work for a meeting. So if you think you're going to be needing another meeting, share that now. Because I think there are like 2 days that are possible if they're still available. Kevin.
So I believe the Nate Levinson proposal will be presented on the 25th. Is there other business that we should be concerned about that's going to really stack that meeting?
So Krista and Patrick and I worked to sort of get everything extra out of that meeting and get it into this meeting. And we're going to ask anybody who's providing an update for the 25th to do it in writing so that we're not spending any time going through the updates during the meeting, because we're expecting Nate's report any day now. We'll get it out to everybody to look through, and then we're going to go over it with Nate on the 25th. So that's part of it. And the other part is the budget piece. But in the past, the budget piece has always taken us longer than we anticipate. So I just wanted to check in before the 25th, see how you're feeling, and if you think we're going to need another meeting and how we would pull it off.
And Don, is the 25th the meeting where we need to approve the warning and all of that?
Yes, that is the meeting. Everything, once we set it all, then we can spend more time if we need to dig in and understand something more then. But if you want to understand something, or you want to dig deeper into something before you make a decision, we'll probably need another meeting. Rob.
Can you remind me of the timeline after the 25th in regards to work with Nate? It's not just a presentation and then we write him a check. Is that correct? And then my other question is, what are we thinking as a board needs to occur after that, as we move forward?
I missed your second half. What are we thinking as a board? I missed that.
Like what? So we're going to get this report. That's sort of the so what, but then what's the next step? Like, are we having extra meetings? Are there community engagement pieces? I'm just trying to gauge what we're thinking on the back end. I don't feel like, have we had that conversation yet?
So I know some of it is outlined in Nate's process, and I don't have my Nate notes here, but there is a timeline, and we did talk about some feedback from the community. I'm gonna look for Krista because I bet she has that timeline right there or close by. But there is a component where we get some feedback from the community, and as we're still digesting and considering Nate's.
Right, so the first step is really him sharing with the board and the proposal authors and the community engagement committee the result of his work. And on the 20th, and we're going to get that in advance, so that's the board's time on the 25th to ask questions about it.
Just a clarity there, Krista, not the community engagement committee, but the
I'm sorry,
community
the community
input.
input committee.
Input,
Thank you.
right.
Right. Thank you. So the community input committee and proposal authors will have a chance to offer thoughts or feedback on the report, as will the board. And on the 25th, we'll have a chance to ask lots of questions. And there's, I think, a lot in there. So we're going to want to take some time to ask questions. And absolutely, that's really the beginning of what we do with all that information. I mean, we have to then figure out what's next. We have not had those conversations yet. I'm sure they would involve a lot of, conversations with the community, but that's has not been talked about yet. So really the 25th is, first, we're going to do our budget warning, and then we're going to review Nate's presentation. And those two things are probably going to take each of them quite a while. So in the months after that, I mean, I'm imagining that we'll be having a lot more conversation about what to do with what we've learned from Nate and how it connects to all the things.
Dave?
Unless we're ready to vote on the budget with little or no discussion, I can't imagine that a budget meeting and Nate's report in the same evening. It'll either be a really, really long meeting, being till 10 or so at night, or two meetings. I think we ought to have a separate meeting for Nate's presentation, I guess is what I'm saying.
I'd agree.
Liz?
And also just for people tuning in too, right? So when we warn the meetings and letting people know that, because I think a lot of people will be interested in what Nate has to say. So just having it just be that presentation would be awesome, or people who are specifically interested in the budget doing the other one. And then also just to throw it out there, I know for instance, one thing that I hope that we consider, if we have time to figure out, is the idea of getting a possibly a survey of some kind or a poll of some kind at the voting locations, because I do feel like that was pretty successful last time we did it. Maybe if we were prepared to do something with Nate's information and do a little community engagement that way.
Okay, thanks, Liz. Krista, I'm remembering Nate saying something about something after the report is presented, where it wasn't just it was after the board's questions too, and I'm blanking on whether it was another meeting with the smaller group or.
I'm
No.
not recalling, but I'll, and maybe Patrick can recall, but in the meantime, I will try to see if I can find his timeline.
I'm not recalling anything specific.
So when there was a mention of an additional meeting, there was some thumbs up from people. But it went and you all shifted. So by the time I refocused on where you all went, I didn't get a clear count. So let's see. Oh, Sarah, you have a question?
I really don't want another meeting, but I think we can't do these two things in the same meeting. I don't want to say that.
Okay. So I did see like 4 thumbs up before everybody switched. 1, 2. All right, so it looks like another meeting is in order. Okay, the timing was limited, so we'll look back at the schedule and see. You might have to give up a Friday night.
John, I can't find anything from
Okay.
the communication from Nate that says there's anything past the final report being presented to the board.
Okay, I think it
Yeah,
was in a phone call. I feel like I'll have to go look for something I wrote down then. Okay. Steve?
Yeah, the last email, I just did a little quick search. It stopped at the 25th.
Okay. All right,
There might have been something in his original proposal talking about the process after this.
maybe that was it. I'll have to go back and look through my notes.
I thought I remember he said he was going to provide like a preliminary report and then get feedback from the board and the CIC and then come out with the final report. But that was from a long time ago.
Yeah, well, all of our memories are a little shaky, so probably best to just go look it up and
Yeah.
get straight.
Get it back. All right. Okay. All right, so that's all I have on meeting mechanics. All right, we're gonna need an executive session, so we can take our public comment now and go from there. Oh, everybody's hopping around again. So let's see. Nancy? Do you have a public comment?
Yes, thanks. I wanted to go back to the conversation you were having about questions around the budget. And one of those items listed some spreadsheets that had to do with school level information about staffing. And I would also, so around class sizes by school, around those sorts of things. And I just want to say that I completely understand that that kind of information given out now has to be qualified because things do change between now and the spring. But I really do think that the community needs to have confidence that at the time the board votes the warning, the board understands how the budget is reflective of that school level information as much as you can know right now. It has to be true that a budget figure, that the way you come up with a budget figure is in part looking at school by school information around what are the grade configurations going to be? What do we think the class sizes are going to be in those grade configurations? How are we going to staff up in each school to meet the goals that we have for kids? And so I do think it's especially within the realm of possibility to show that information to the board and to the public before the warning is set, because the public needs to have confidence that the board understands what the budget's going to mean at the school by school level. So I hope you might reconsider taking a look at that information as a board in public session before you vote the warning.
Thank you. Herb?
Yeah, thanks, Don. A couple of points, just to follow up on Nancy's comments. Absolutely critical that people know, to the best of knowledge at this point, how the kids are going to be educated, and what the staffing is going to be. That's the budget. And I would add in there that it's also, I think, pretty critical to know the same kind of information at the central office level. A budget is about allocating resources. And if you don't have that picture of the allocation of resources between the central office and the facility, I think, you're a bit blind there. You don't have the information you need to make, your budget decisions. That information was put out last year. It was pretty good information. I think it was December 2020, and it projected, for a bunch of fiscal years. So I'm not asking anybody to create anything new, but I bet it's there. And it should be disclosed, I think, to the board and the public. The second issue I wanted to comment on, and I've been just steaming here. I want to thank Dave for highlighting. This is about the question of, geez, we really want to know what these high schools are spending, because the low spending schools are being treated unfairly. If all you're going to run through is the presentation that you did last year, without the assumptions and the calculations on which those numbers are based, all you're doing is just dividing this district. And if you want to push towns out of the district, you're doing a pretty good job. You're doing a pretty good job. I appreciate that we'll have a right to vote, but if that's the attitude that, geez, Starksboro, Robinson, spending too much money there, let's shut it down or let's squeeze them. That's not helpful. That is really not helpful. And people will remember that going forward here. So I appreciate the folks who push back on that argument because it's really not the way to go. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment?
Kristen has her hand up.
Yeah, but public comment is really not a time for board members to comment from the board table. So
I just feel like something I said was misconstrued by Herb. I'll just say that. And I think it's fair for us to answer that sometimes when something that we've said is incredibly misconstrued and we don't get the last word. I don't know what that's called, but it's I don't know. So I just need to address that's what just occurred.
You can always call, Kristen.
Right, but it's out there in public, Herb. If we have I'd love to have a conversation, but if it's out there in public, it's out there in public and you get the last word. And anyway, so I just want to say what I previously communicated was misconstrued.
any other public comment? All right. So at this point, we're going to need an executive session under Title I, VSA 5313A3, the evaluation of an employee, specifically the continuation of the superintendent conversation. So I need a motion to go into executive session,
I'll move it, Andrew.
7:35.
I'll second, Dawn, Krista. And just to clarify, we will still come back to close out the meeting. Is that
Right.
correct? Will
And-
we have any statements or anything to make, or will that be just to close?
We have an action item to
Okay.
authorize the chair to sign the employment contract.
Okay.
We'll have to come back to this format to do it and then finish up our meeting then. If we can let Chris go for the remainder of the minutes, if a board member is willing to run through the evaluation when we go back. Liz, will you do that? Great, thanks, Liz. Okay. I don't know that, Patrick, would you like to join us, or are you all right with us having this conversation?
I'm okay with the board having the conversation. If you need
Okay.
me to join, I'm happy to join.
Okay,
If you prefer I didn't, that's fine too.
all right.
We need
Okay.
to vote.
So all those in favor of going into executive session at 7:37 under Title I, BSA 5313A3, evaluation of an employee, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so we'll leave this and go to the other link.
And Don, what do you need from me to be able to facilitate that?
Is there a way to leave it open?
Are you going to be on the same device or a different device? I could make you host.
But then
and
I
it
have
can stay
to,
open.
then I have to leave this open because
Right, that's the question. If you have it's hard to do on one device. If you have two different devices going, it's not as hard to do. I just didn't know how you were set up tonight.
I don't have two devices, but maybe I can get one.
That's okay. I mean, I guess I can hang out till you come out of executive session and keep it rolling.
Do you want to do that though? Don't you?
Want might be a strong word. I am willing to do that if that's what's needed.
It is to
Okay.
your, it is to your benefit.
All right, if you don't mind, and maybe we'll be quick. I'm hoping we'll be really quick. Look,
Okay.
it looks like Chris lost her laptop. Oh, she's on her desktop and can finish without a problem. Okay, so, all right. Okay, hopefully we'll be soon.
Can you
Okay.
make Chris the host?
Well, no, because Chris is gonna leave too.
Chris is leaving.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought
I
you
think the
was-
plan is I'll be the one hanging out. I think everybody else is free to go.
Okay. All right, thank you, Patrick.
Sure.
Okay. We have an action item, which changed a little, so they're gonna, the action item will be to authorize the board chair to work with the board council to update the superintendent's contract with a new 3-year contract. Is that correct? All right, so I need a motion for that action.
So moved.
And that is Andrew.
Andrew.
Okay,
Krista will second.
all right, Krista. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of authorizing the board chair to work with board council to update the superintendent's contract with a new 3-year contract, please say aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Any abstentions? I like the card, Kevin. I forgot about that.
I'm abstaining only because I only caught halfway through executive session, so I'm just going to abstain.
Okay. All right. Okay, and Liz, if you wouldn't mind running us through the evaluation?
Yep, and I don't have access to the editing the agenda in terms of what we just did, so is that something you can fill in on that?
Yep, I'll fill that in.
Okay. So what was the level of engagement of all board members?
Hi.
Hi. Was the agenda followed?
Yes.
Yes.
Does the chair effectively establish the agenda and materials for distribution to the board?
Yes.
Is the chair effective in fostering a professional culture regarding fair and open deliberation, full participation of members, and ensuring the integrity of the board process? Thumbs up. Other feedback for the chair? What went well with the meeting?
One of our shortest on record.
8:05.
Shortest on record. Excellent. And what suggestions do you have for ways to improve future meetings? No suggestions, then we are all set.
All right, so we just need a motion to adjourn at 8:06.
So moved, Rob.
Second, Kristen.
Kristen, all right, all those in favor of adjourning at 8:06, please say aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye,
Watch
good
your
night.
email for a future meeting coming, so. And see you tomorrow night.
Happy New Year. Night, everyone.
Good night.